Welcome everyone to session 6 on the Experiencing No Self series. Today we're going to look at what the Buddha called the 5 khandhas, or often translated as aggregates. What they are a little bit, but mostly I want to, and how we cling to them, and what the true nature actually is of the first one, of rupa. Now we've talked about the other aspects of the 5 aggregates, because we've talked about how we identify with thoughts, with mental formations, with emotions, which is part of these 5 aggregates. We have talked about the 5 aggregates in past sessions, but basically the 5 aggregates is a kind of a classification of our conditioned existence. They make up our experience. So they're subject to conditions, they're impermanent, therefore they give rise to suffering. And a self cannot be found in any of them. So this is an important aspect of these 5 aggregates. I'm not thrilled with that word aggregate, but that's the typical translation. That khandha is actually a common word in Pali in the Buddha's time, and it really it meant a pile or a heap of something. So you could really just look at it as a bunch of stuff, 5 bunches of stuff that makes up our experience. Could be another translation, if that's, because aggregates to me sounds like I'm going to pave the driveway or something, or it sounds like something a scientist might mix up, a test tube or something. Anyway, maybe that's just me. Maybe aggregates sounds fine for you, but as long as you get the idea that it's this heaps or collections. So there, you've got rupa, or physical form, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's a collection of sensations and body, and actually the material world includes the sense organs as well within. You've got the feeling tone, vedana, this pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, which we've talked about. You've got perception that arises, which is the third one. You've got mental formations, which includes pretty much everything else, the things that go on in our minds, and then you've got consciousness. So, another way to think about it, like perception and feeling tone are really just other mental formations, right? If you can look at it that way, what you've really got is the physical world, the mental world, and then consciousness. And the Buddha just kind of pulled perceptions and feeling tone out of the category of mental formations, just to emphasize their importance. But really, that's what we're talking about is these 3. And so I want to talk about form. And I've got a few reasons for that. It's because often people say, "Oh, I don't really identify so much with the body, with my body. I'm more identified with my emotions or with my thoughts," right? A lot of us are actually addicted, never mind identified with our thoughts. And emotions, some of us are, very invested and take our emotions very personally. So I started with those, although the Buddha started with body. But a lot of people can kind of think, well, I don't feel like I'm so identified with body like I am thoughts, right? But I think if we dig, we might find that there is an identification. One way that a teacher pointed out to me was, when I'm looking, and if I'm in a room full of people, is there judgments about physical bodies, other people's physical bodies? Right? Is there a comparing? Oh, look at that person, or look at the body on that. If that's going on, then there's a very obvious identification with one's own body. So that's so we will talk a bit about that. We'll be talking about the how the aggregates, not so much how the aggregates cause suffering, but how our attachment to to Rupa, or the physical form, causes suffering, and what its true nature is, which is also very interesting. So the Buddha in the First Noble Truth said, all these things cause suffering. We kind of listed them: sorrow, lamentation, getting what one, not getting what one wants, getting what one doesn't want. He kind of went through a list, and then he said at the very end of that kind of listing, he said, in short, it is the 5 aggregates of clinging that cause suffering. So whenever I hear a phrase like "in short," I think, oh, pay attention. This sounds like it's kind of like we're getting to the bottom line here. We're getting to the crux of the matter. And so really, I think, that's in the First Noble Truth, and that's where he goes from. It's, in short, it's these 5 aggregates of clinging that cause suffering. So if we can really see how we cling to these aspects that we call self, and see their true nature, then we've really let go of, the cessation of suffering can arise. So in essence, we could trace all the suffering in our lives to these 5 aggregates of subject to clinging. So it's the tendency to identify with each of these aggregates. So when we carefully examine them, we can see that there is a tendency to cling to them. So we can look at each of the 5 aggregates, as we did with thoughts and emotions, right? We looked at those and we saw firsthand they're not self. I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions. They're just arising and passing, right? They're just arising on their own without my consent and passing. We saw that they kind of have no essence to them that we're controlling, and they're not capable of providing lasting happiness. That's the aspect of unsatisfactoriness. So we're really seeing those 3 aspects of the marks of existence: the unsatisfactoriness, the impermanence, and the no self and nature. So today I want to look at Rupa, or form, which refers to all physical form, including our bodies. We're just going to talk about bodies today, our physical bodies. So we'll concentrate on this. It's really just the physical organism that through which one experiences the world, right? We for all the other aggregates to work, you need this physical body, right? For you to have thoughts, emotions, perceptions, sense consciousness requires this physical body. So I'm going to just put the question out to you: what are the ways in which we identify with the body? How do we take this body so personally? Another way to identify with it. I mean, I think the most obvious when we're teenagers going through puberty, the identification with the body is, and what our peers think of our body is quite important, right? We, is almost in some ways an obsession with caring for the body, making it look a certain way. So there, we could see, particularly in those years, a deep identification with the body. So any other kind of or perhaps more subtle ways that we identify with the body. Yeah, yeah, Carl. Yeah.
I guess I'm identifying with an aging body.
Mm.
You know, a body that's where the skin is getting different, where the functions are changing, you know, becoming a bit more problematic sometimes, you know, going to doctors where the focus is on the internal aspects of the body, very existential in a lot of ways, you know, a body that will eventually fail.
Mm. Yeah, and this can cause, seeing this and identifying with our bodies, and as it ages or it gets ill, can cause us a lot of suffering, right? Because if we're identified with the body. So getting an illness, sometimes we'll get an illness, even something simple like catching a cold. If you can remember back in the days when we actually caught colds when we socialized, and I haven't had a cold since the pandemic began, but back when you'd get a cold and you'd take it very personally. At least you could. If there's an identification with the body, there's a sense that, I should have been more careful, or I should, there's some judgment around it. And if I exercise more, some blame. I ate better, some more blame. I wouldn't have got this cold. And it's, in fact, the nature of the body is to age and get ill. It's just what bodies do. It's what happens with nature. So that's basically the Buddha saying here is really notice those identifications with the body. And he gave practices like we did in the guided meditation, the 32 parts. So just kind of seeing that, these are just parts that come together, which form a physical organism called the body. So he's trying to just kind of get us to see, like, a car is just an assemblage of parts. It's no individual part is car. It's just when they come together that a car emerges. And then there's the elements of air, earth, heat, fire, or temperature, and water or liquid, and feeling those as sensations. That's the other way to see where we're identified and to see the nature of the body. So I want to talk more, and this will build on what we spoke about last week, this whole notion of ultimate reality and relative truth, and knowing the true nature of the body. So there is this body here, right, in the relative realm. There's a physical body that exists, but what's its true nature? Is a deeper aspect of this exploration. When we don't know the true nature of the body, we will identify with it as a me, right? If we don't know, like, think of how we explored thoughts. If you don't know the true nature of thoughts, right, then you identify with thoughts as a me, something I'm in control of. Of course, if you've meditated for very long, you realize you have absolutely no control over your thoughts. They just do their come and go. The ego is very much takes a big part in those thoughts that arise. So we explore the true nature of the body. So we're seeing it as a collection of parts, seeing it as sensations just arising moment by moment. And that seeing it, and that it will ultimately decompose when the physical form dies. So another practice of the Buddha was to, in the Buddha's time, people could go to the carnal fields where bodies were put to decompose and actually feed vultures and kind of go back into nature. So one practice was to go and watch the process of the body decomposing, to see its true nature going back. Now that can sound kind of gross or to us, but it is a practice to see, how nature, what arises passes away in the relative world, and people can practice with animals that they might find dead on the side of the road to see that the nature of an animal as well, to decompose, to really kind of see that so it's not to gross us out, but to kind of see the true nature. When I did the study with Matthew, he sent us all CDs, and it was an autopsy. So you get this CD, it's a teaching from Matthew, and I plug it in. Back in the day when you had CDs and you plug it in and the computer, and up comes, and it's a video, a whole long involved full color autopsy, right? And it's like, maybe he put the wrong video in the envelope when he sent this, but there's no explanations. He said, just watch it and contemplate it. So we watched, and the idea wasn't, again, to gross us out, but just to say, this is you peel back the skin, you have all these parts. So it was a contemplation. It wasn't a negative statement on the body, but to really just see its true nature. So it's a very deep teaching, actually, exploring the body. So it's experiencing the body as it is. So when the Buddha taught the four elements and contemplating the body, it sounds very simple, right? But it actually is a very deep teaching, because it's taking us out of the conceptual definition of the body into directly experiencing what's arising in the body moment by moment. The air element, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and just feeling all those elements, as temperature changing, as we did in the guided meditation, body sensations of temperature, of touch, of liquid, and so on. So every time we're aware of a sensation in the body, it is an awareness of rupa. It's an awareness of material form. So it takes us beyond the concept of the body to the direct realization of the body. So this series is called Experiencing No Self. So the way to experience no self with rupa is to just dwell in that direct experience of the body, whatever's happening. So we can speak about, a pain in the neck or pain in the knee, or our head hurts. We're just using the concepts back, knee, and head, right? There's no such thing as a back or a knee or a head. It's just a concept, a label that we've given. But we can observe the sensations that arise, right, in the back or the knee or the head when we go beyond the concept and move into the direct experience of the body. So it's another, this aggregate really shows us the difference between, trying to figure out at a conceptual level and going into the direct experience of what is being explored. Because, concepts don't change. Neck is neck. So concepts regarding the body, they really don't change, but the sensations do. Concepts freeze it actually in time, but sensations are constantly in flux. The actual experience of the body is constantly in flux. It's constantly arising and passing away. It's constantly in flux. And this is really what we see at a very deep level when we stay with the body in this way. So we contemplate or we meditate with the body. We can see firsthand, right? It's unsubstantial nature. It's not these various parts. We can see its impermanent nature. It's constantly arising. See the four elements constantly arising and passing away. So it's really helpful as a way of describing our felt sense of the material physical world. Our kind of subjective felt sense. Yeah, just seeing them changing and seeing it firsthand. So it's really, the body's really nothing more. I mean, the more you look, the more you see that the body's nothing more than just sensations arising in space. So arising, passing. There's no self that you can sort of grab onto and say, there it is in the body. And I'm not denying that we have a body, right? That there's this physical form that's there. What we're really getting to is it's seeing its relative truth and its ultimate truth. Because we often just deal with it at this relative level. We're very identified with it at the relative level, and of course, that's where suffering arises. For me, walking meditation was a really key practice for me in seeing, exploring the body's true nature. Just walking, doing the walking meditation. You do it back and forth in that 10-foot space, and just being aware of what's arising in the body moment by moment. Or you can even do it when you're going for a walk in the neighborhood. You're just simply directing attention to that aspect of your experience, to body sensation. It sounds so simple, but it's not something we often do, right? Thoughts, actually, most often, probably people are lost in thought and thinking about something that just happened before they started their walk, or something that might happen, or somebody who should cut their grass, or I don't know, whatever kind of pops into the thought train. Yeah. So this systematic attention. Here's a quote from the Buddha: "Whatever material form there be, whether past, future, or present, internal or external, gross or subtle, low or lofty, far or near, that material form the meditator sees, meditates upon, examining with systematic attention, thus seeing, meditating upon, and examining with systematic attention, would find it empty, would find it unsubstantial and without essence." What essence, meditators, could there be in material form? So I pose another question. What is the true nature of the body, or the ultimate reality of the body? If you've done that exploration, what have you noticed about the body? I've alluded to some of it, or more than alluded, but what's the true nature, the ultimate reality? So we're very familiar with the relative reality, which we're not discounting, right? The body is useful, it has a use. We navigate the world in it. So we're not negating that. But what's the ultimate truth of the body? What's its true nature? Is the body, yeah, go ahead, Giovanni. You're muted, yeah, Dan, yeah.
No, I went like this because I thought it was Jason going.
Oh, did Jason do that? No, he's just, I think he's just, oh, he is, okay. Okay, Jason, I didn't see it, I just saw you. Okay, go ahead, Jason, thanks.
Thanks, Joanne. I see the true nature of the body as being really defined by the vast interconnectedness of everything, and it's our the interactions that our body has that really define the awareness that maybe we're experiencing if we ever encounter awareness. So that's how I view it. It's looking at it from the interconnectedness and the experiences.
Yeah. So that's the, the coming out. So we're we're not just a nobody, right? We're not just nothing, we're everything at the same time, right? So when we say we're not a self, that's pointing to the fact that there's nothing here. I mean, you're somebody, but you're a nobody at the same, you're nothing at the same time, but you're also everything. That's the ultimate, pointing to the ultimate truth. So we often think of the body as defined by our skin, right? Just to build on what Jason said, right? You think of your body as encapsulated in this covering that we call skin, right? Isn't that so? When you sit down and do a guided meditation, you tend to look at what's happening within that skin, or maybe on the skin if you're feeling the breeze blowing body hair or head hair or whatever, or feeling, it just stops at the skin, right? Do people meditate when, sensation of the body, sort of feel into what's maybe happening way above them or way below them in the earth? But that, this is a useful definition, right? A useful definition of the body for operating in the relative world is this body with its skin. Same as a bell, right? We have a concept for it, bell, but it's also, does the bell begin and end at the surface of the bell? Right, the bell is it's metal. It's made out. It takes minerals, water, probably heat. I don't know, sun, wind, rain, and on it goes. Without any one of those, the bell wouldn't exist, right? So can you really say that the bell ends at the edge of the, because if you take anyone out, it wouldn't exist. So it's useful to say, okay, the bell and that it exists as at that level, but is it the truth? Is it the ultimate truth of the bell? So can we go beyond usefulness and talk about towards truthfulness or reality? And if we do, then the body doesn't end at the surface of the skin any more than the bell does. Right, our true body, beyond conventional definitions, our body doesn't end at the skin. The air we breathe, the food we eat, the water we consume, the ground we walk on. These are not just things that we eat or drink or walk on or breathe. They're ultimately things that we are. Because if you remove any one of them, there is no body. Right? For a single body to exist, it takes all of life. It takes everything. If you removed anything, the body wouldn't exist. Everything on the earth. And for the earth to exist, it takes the whole cosmos. So that's how we interconnect beyond. We would sometimes think in terms of just this planet. The earth wouldn't exist without a cosmos, without all those interconnections as well. So that's the truth of it, is for this body doesn't end at the skin. It's actually interconnected with everything. So we've mistaken a useful and conventional and conceptual definition of the body, but it's not a truthful definition of it. It's not a truthful conception, not a truthful reality or description, I guess is the word I would use, of the body. Right? It's not the truth of the body. So we've mistaken this concept and this useful definition of the body for the truthful reality of the body. So it's not like they can both simultaneously exist, right? They can both simultaneously exist. I'm not discounting one, saying one, but so there is a body. So there's a relative truth, but that's all we tend to concentrate on, and that's what we live within, and therefore we suffer because we don't see. If we could see the body from the relative. Well, let me put it out. It's not just seeing the body from the relative. It's seeing the body from wholeness, that it is both relative and ultimate. That's the word I like the word wholeness, from the perspective of wholeness. We see it truthfully beyond the skin. And it might not even be a useful description of the body. I started out by saying it's useful. It's useful because we need to care for it and we move through the world. But it might be more useful for us to actually understand the truth of the body as interconnected, because then we might care for the air and the water, and the earth and the cosmos at this point. Now we can say cosmos because we're shooting stuff up into space like it's a dump. But we might care for all that stuff if we saw the truth of the body. So it has huge ramifications, even for that. Our bodies include all of life. So if we see all of life as our body, then we don't see parts of what's out there as expendable. It's us. Yeah. So we're not, yeah, Giovanni, go ahead.
This time it is me. So it is a partial truth, because like as you mentioned last time, they're both truths. It's just that we hang onto one all the time in an illusory way. They're both real, if I may say, or they're both true and they're both valuable. It's just that we see ourselves as just a part of it, the relative part, and see ourselves as finite rather than being connected. As you mentioned, would you say that that's also true not just for the body but also for the other aggregates, the thoughts and so forth? By the same token, perhaps one could also say that even our thoughts are the intersection of our culture, our environment, our community, and so forth. So it's a comment and a question at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful comments, everyone. Yeah, I gave that talk last week about ultimate and relative truths, and I tried to make it, experiential and concrete. And I thought, how to. So I really thought the body was perhaps an entry point into seeing that, because I say, you can actually even intellectually say, oh yeah, I can see that I wouldn't be here without water. Well, we're mostly water, so it's an easy one. I mean, I wouldn't be here without, and you can actually, but without a grain of sand, you wouldn't be here. That's how interconnected everything is. So you can see that, but you're right. It's that's what you said is truthful, in that the thoughts are the same way. They arise. They're not something we're in control of, or they're somehow us. They're just arising based on infinite causes and conditions. Infinite causes and conditions. And you can you might be able to trace a few back to family history, genetics. If you're a worrier, there's a genetic. Or if you're the different things happen to you, especially as a child, that you could trace a little bit back, and you could talk to a psychologist, and they might be able to look at some of the potential causes for some of the thoughts that are arising. But really, you're just scratching the surface, right? All of that just goes on infinitely. It's infinitely connected. And it can be helpful to know a little bit about how these things arise, but really the truth of it is you can't possibly know. So yeah, it's the same for all these aspects of our experience. Is when we say interconnected, it means everything, just everything. Just everything, yeah. And this is why we can say no self. There's no independent self, because of course it's infinitely connected. There's no permanent self, because you can see that everything's constantly in flux and changing. And again, these aren't things for you to believe, right? Me telling you them. That's the title of the series is Experiencing No Self. So now the job is to spend some time directing your attention in a way that you see the ultimate truth of these aspects of your experience. Because someone said, I can't remember who, we spend a lot of our attention in the relative, right? All of our attention in the relative. I mean, 99, well, it's just, we go to school for like 20 years and we're taught how to devise concepts, manipulate, distinguish, categorize, and it's all very useful, but that's what we're trained to do. How much training do we get in actually seeing the insubstantial, impermanent nature of thoughts, to seeing the relative truth? So we need to direct our attention towards towards seeing the ultimate. Otherwise, it'll never be seen. You know, it's wanting to be seen. Ultimate truth is there, always there. It's not something you have to create, or it's just always there. It's almost screaming to be seen, but it's we just have to direct our attention towards it. And of course, after you direct your attention towards it for a while, it becomes more of a default way of seeing, so that then you can start operating in the relative world from the perception of the ultimate truth. And that's really, you could say, the point. The point is truth, period. But I guess you could say part of it is, you know, once we awaken to the truth, it's then how do we integrate that into how we live our lives, right? Anything else coming up for folks? I came across a cool poem. I came across a few this week. People send me emails and ask me questions and stuff, and I don't know if people want to be identified when they do that, but so I won't. But somebody sent me an email asking about Jeff Foster, and so looking for a line in the Jeff Foster. So I started reading Jeff Foster poems, and I was just really getting the feel for it, right? And of course, you could get just it's like being lost in the absolute or something, just reading some of this poetry. And but I came across another one. It's not a Jeff Foster, but it's Tony Hoagland. I don't know if people are familiar with Hoagland. Hoagland. Hoag, Tony. And it's called Personal. It kind of struck me. So don't take it personal, they said, but I did. I took it quite personally. The breeze and the river and the colors of the fields, the price of grapefruit and stamps, the wet hair of women in the rain, and I cursed what hurt me, and I praised what gave me joy, the most simple-minded of possible responses. The government reminded me of my father, with its deafness and its laws, and the weather reminded me of my mom, with her tropical squalls. Enjoy it while you can, they said of happiness. Think first, they said of talk. Get over it, they said, at the school of broken hearts. But I couldn't, and I didn't, and I don't believe in the clean break. I believe in the compounded fracture served with a sauce of dirty regret. I believe in saying it all and taking it all back and saying it again for good measure while the air fills up with I'm sorries, like wheeling birds, and the trees look seasick in the wind. Oh, life, can you blame me for making a scene? You were that yellow caboose, the moon disappearing over a ridge of cloud. I was the dog, chained in some fool's backyard, barking and barking, trying to convince everyone else to take it personal too. Oh, life, can you blame me for making a scene? I love that line. I was the dog chained in some fool's backyard, barking and barking, trying to convince everyone else to take it personal too. Well, I guess what I'm doing here is trying to convince you or show you practices that can not take it personal and not be that dog chained in some fool's backyard. chasing its tail. That's what we tend to do a lot. Yeah.
Hmm. I'm I'm wondering to what extent us humans are condemned to be locked, having this mental lock into the relative, using the body into the me. It's me. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm wondering to what extent even culture uh, plays a role in this. I'm thinking about the indigenous communities, for example. Their sense of connectedness to the land, to nature, and so forth. So that's, if you're born and raised in that culture, you inherit those views, those principles, those concepts. I'm guessing if you are born and raised in Bhutan or in Tibet to some degree, although things are changing there as well, I understand. Yeah, you also see perhaps a little bit, have a glimpse of that ultimate truth a little bit more readily than some of us. I'm wondering.
Yeah, I don't know, but Eckhart Tolle, author of Power of Now, has fairly recently said, for the world to become conscious is not really an option anymore. It's we become conscious or we die. So it's become more serious business. If we die, I guess maybe we kill the planet, and perhaps, I actually heard Elon Musk say the reason why he wants to colonize Mars is because he doesn't want consciousness to die on this planet if we kill it. He doesn't want human consciousness, which I thought was a very interesting answer. Not one I expected, but yeah, it's important. This is important work.
And one thing that strikes me about all this talk about the body and self is that one big challenge we have is that, whatever this body is, we can't get away from it. We're stuck. We're stuck to it. So it's constantly, it's like a ball and chain in a way to our consciousness or to our lived experience. So it makes it very hard to I would say, to really, it's just, we're bombarded constantly with the presence and the demands of the body and everything that we experience in it. So how do we address that challenge? I mean, kind of perplexing for me a little bit.
Yeah, so we're not discounting the usefulness of the body. Right? We're not discounting the marvel of the body, the mystery of the body, like just to see just the Buddha taught a lot about looking at skeletons and decomposing bodies, but at the other side of that is seeing the birth of a human being is just this just amazing, mind-boggling just event, like just to witness that, right? It's both. It's just this huge marvel, and this, it's just amazing that all this holds together and works at all, right? I mean, it's just nature. I mean, we're not doing it. If you had control over anything in your body, you'd just die, right? It's just nature. It's all biological processes taking place that you just, your consciousness is along for the ride in many ways. So yeah, it's the marvel of it. So we're seeing the marvel of it, but seeing it, so its true nature also is that it will die and decompose, that it's connected to everything, that it's in constant flux. So we can see that it's actually nature unfolding rather than some little me, which the ego likes to reinforce, right? The egoic mind, from the egoic mind's perspective, it's me in here, right? And I'm controlling all this. And so all the practices is inviting us to do is see that that's not what's happening. That's an illusion. That's not what's happening. There's no self. And we create all our suffering because we have that perception, that misperception, that the me's in control. The me's in control of the body, the me's in control of thoughts, the me's in control of emotions, right? So the me being the egoic mind. So of course there's suffering. If that's the perception we're operating from, then of course you're at fault. If you believe you're in control and shit happens, then it's your fault. I remember when that insight came to me, I was offering a retreat and somebody, I can't even remember what the question was, and that insight came to me and I thought, yeah, if that's my perception, then of course it's my fault. No wonder I'm suffering. You can't do anything but suffer. There's nothing else that can happen except suffering, because something will go wrong. That we know that, right? Shit happens. So if you think you're in control, then all the shit that happens is your fault. So you're going to suffer. But if you can let go of that, right? I know I'm going beyond body here. We're talking about all the aggregates: body, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, feeling, tone, sense consciousness. Let go of all that is not the little self being, possessing this and manipulating it all. And there's a real freedom, right? It's like lifting a burden. Shit can just happen. And you go, oh, there's shit happening. Look at that. It's a law of nature that shit happens, and there it is. It's happening again. It's happening here to this body, this mind. It's happening to this body, this mind over here. This body getting ill, this body aging. So really that's the it's it's allowing nature just to unfold and seeing that that's what's happening. Of course, in subsequent weeks, we'll get into how this changes, seeing this, how this sort of changes how we move as conscious, moving bodies in the world. Because the relative world still rolls on, right? So we still roll on in that. Just changes our relationship to it. We no longer suffer when nature doesn't cooperate with our wishes and wants. And it's another way to put it. Even in meditation, just sit down and meditate, right? And you feel, oh, I feel a little stressed today. It'd be really nice just to be calm. I just need to bring some calm into my life. It's just a hectic day. I just need some calm in my life, and just sit down. The mind goes for the whole half hour. So you go, oh, I wish this would, how can I stop this? I wish this wasn't happening. Oh, it's suffering. So the two things are happening. You're suffering because you think you shouldn't be able to stop it. And you're suffering because you're resisting that it's happening. So if you just sit down, I had a rough day. Some days go like that. Some days don't. Some days do. This day went, sideways 3 times. Sitting down to meditate. There's an active mind to top it off. Go figure. In fact, if you kind of came with that attitude, then the active mind might just dissolve, right? The resisting is what gives it juice and energy. It might not. You might be so ramped up that it just continues to buzz around. Who knows? But yeah. So it changes our relationship to it. So we're not, the body is this wonder. We look after it. I mean, God, we spend how much of our day brushing it, washing it. You think about it. You feed it, then now your teeth are dirty. So now you got to clean your teeth, and then clean then you got to, now I got to exercise it, or it's going to get all lumpy and it's good for my health. I've heard. So I got to go exercise. So you exercise. Now I'm thirsty. So now you got to pour liquids into it and sit down. And now it's hungry again. You think about how much of your day you're just looking after this body. And it's just telling you, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. I feel like I need movement. I need stillness. A lot of our days just responding to these demands from the body. It's, and that's what being human and big part of it is looking after this marvelous body. And what's the Buddha call it? The fathom long body. Have other people heard that? Does anybody know what that means? Fathom long? Does it mean the interconnection? Like it doesn't never ends? But anyway, that just popped into my head. Fathom long body. I don't know if I answered your question. I went off on a few tangents, but
It was very entertaining.
Thanks. Well, that's part of giving Dharma talks is you have to entertain a little bit or people don't tune back in. Yeah, Gina.
I heard this hilarious metaphor of this idea that we control everything and it's this huge complicated thing around us that just does its own thing. And it was actually this neurologist was talking about consciousness in the brain, the machinery of the brain. So he used it in a slightly different way, but he compared consciousness to like a stowaway on an ocean liner. And the stowaway is like, every time the ocean liner does something, the stowaway is like, oh, I did that. I moved the boat this way. I honked the horn or whatever. And of course, it's all just happening and happening and happening. But there's this like tiny little creature in the middle of it taking credit for it all. I thought it was quite hilarious in a way.
Yeah.
I'll take a little bit more space, more than my share today. When you mentioned, Steve, that about a month and a half ago that you were going to talk about emptiness, you remember my reaction says, well, that's going to be easy. I thought, because I find it's one of the most difficult subject in the Dharma. I have to say that through these talks, your teachings and the contribution of everybody else, things have become somewhat clearer, particularly if I think about the relative and the ultimate truth, and of course the concept of interconnectedness. What still, it's not it bothers me. It's this realization that we are enslaved to the concept of to the I. I don't know that anybody on earth is born without that sense of I, of me, of that kind of egotistical worldview. And everything else I can, that we discussed in these weeks, I can intellectually understand, but this sense of how to work, to try to meditate, to work with good intent so that it has less of a hold. It's almost like it's a given. There is an I think you mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago that you've given up on trying to maybe I misunderstood you, but I think I heard you say that the sense of I, it's there. I may as well just not try to instinctively feel that it's not there, but then kind of intersect it, with consciousness, with mindfulness, and work with it. But it's almost like a given. I wish that there would be a way to try to have this pesky monkey of ego, being a little bit less troublesome.
Yeah, so we're both conditioned selves and unconditioned selves, right? So we're exploring how to perceive the unconditioned, but the conditioned self is going to continue, right? I mean, you're never going to extinguish the conditioning, nor would you really want to. I mean, biologically, we have a lot of conditioning that's necessary for us to survive. So we don't condition it. You just notice that this is the conditioned realm. This is what's arising, and you see it from the realization of the unconditioned. I was meeting with one of you guys that came up with said something in conversation. I notice when the ego acts up, and I just thought that was so bang on. So just noticing when the ego acts up. It's like having a dog that pees on your floor every once in a while. It's just, that's the dog's nature. It's just every once in a while it pees on my living room carpet. Right? Beating the dog isn't going to stop the dog from being on, well, maybe with a dog, but not with an ego. Even with a dog, it probably wouldn't be very compassionate either, but probably not a good metaphor to take too far, but it's just the ego acts up, right? The ego acts up. Just, there's the ego acting up. It doesn't mean you have to believe what it's saying, or it's just conditioned world unfolding. And we're not going to stop that. I know, there may be some gradual paths where they want to purify all conditioning and there be no more, completely purified to the point where there's no defilements, there's no sense of the egoic mind arising. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know. I don't know that I've met anybody that's purified that it's even possible. But I do know that you can change your relationship to that conditioned realm, the unfolding of that conditioned realm, right? You don't have to believe it, buy into it, see it as a self, and so on. And really, that's the crux of where I see the Buddhist teachings is, there's karmic luggage that we all have, right? That we carry, and for some of us, it's heavier bags, heavier karmic loads, or whatever you want to call it. And so that conditioning will play out. Of course, a lot of conditioning dissolves, right? A lot of the sort of gross reactivity and so on that we might have based on our conditioning does dissolve, but there's still significant conditioning that exists, and we don't want to resist it or get rid of it, or because that's just more resistance. We're just simply seeing it for what it is, conditioning unfolding. And that's sort of why I said I've given up trying to get rid of it, because that's just resistance, right? What I've done is just accepted that, oh yeah, here's some conditioning that's still unfolding, whereas the person said it's the egoic mind acting up. The egoic mind continues to do that out of fear for its demise as we move forward in this practice. So I hope that answers your question. And we're out of time. I'm away next week on a canoe camping trip. So I don't know, is the best way to proceed to cancel it, or do people still want to get together and sit or play a talk and have a dialogue? I mean, I'm open to anything that you might want to do, to build. It's up to you. Any views out there, or do you want me to just decide? I could.
Sounds like you're deciding.
Sorry?
Sounds like you are deciding.
No, I haven't decided. I could send a talk as well that you could play yourselves. It's just whether you want to get together as a Sangha or not. That's the question. We've never done this on Zoom before. I know when I'm not here in the live classes that they just go ahead without me, and somebody, rings the bell and plays the talk, and there's a dialogue. So I don't know, how do you think that'll work over Zoom? Would anybody come?
I would come, but I won't lead it.
Yeah.
I'm
But I would
away.
converse.
I'm away too, actually also camping.
Okay.
But I think in concept, we could do it if someone would just say, we'd all support each other. Someone would say, okay, ding, and away you go. Or someone could, I don't know, you know, just be together and sit, you know, it's pretty
Yeah.
simple.
Somebody would need Zoom. Well, why don't we, because I won't have internet to even sort of, if I had internet, I'd probably try doing it, you know, with my phone, sitting under a tree, but that would be kind of interesting. Well, if somebody would need to host it on Zoom, why don't we do this? If anybody's willing to host it, let me know, like in the next day, if you could, because I'm leaving on the weekend. So yeah, let me know tomorrow. And if somebody's willing to host it, then I'll just, basically hosting would be ringing a bell, you could play a guided meditation if you wanted, or you could just ring the bell and sit together. And then usually play the beginning of a talk. I could even recommend one that would fit with sort of what we're doing, and then, you know, have a discussion. So if anybody's willing to host that, let me know. If not, I'll send out an email canceling the session. How's that sound for a plan? Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, enjoy your next 2 weeks, and we're going to start exploring things like will, and more on interconnection, you know, those kinds of karma, how it fits into all this. So we'll really start to unravel some of these fairly deep teachings and explorations as we move forward with this. Yeah. So take care, everyone. Be well. It's great to see you all. Thanks for coming.
You have a great trip.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
guys. Nice to see you
Nice
all.
seeing y'all.
Bye, thanks.
Uh, mhm.
Hi.
Right.
How's it going? I've got a few minutes. My son's birthday today, and he's on a 37-day hiking trip, but he's in a town. He's on like day 13 or something, and he's in a town. So we're going to do a video call with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
no, it's
what's
going
new?
well. I'm actually sort of getting back into yoga, and I found that summer's been a bit crazy, but I'm getting back into yoga, and definitely the not self teachings are definitely helpful around you know, just kind of the whole thing with connection with the body tonight really resonated, because it's that's what really struck me, is that we can't get away from it, right? We're stuck to it, and it can be a drag, as much as the mind can, I suppose. So there's no right way around it. Like you said, shit happens, and I like to work on that and explore the relationship to that. That's an ultimate truth, basically, that shit happens.
Yeah.
And how to be with that. That's not simple. I mean, it's one thing to just say, well, you know, I'll just observe my reaction. Sometimes that's very hard.
Yeah. So the body and the mind are only a drag if we identify with it, right?
Yet when there's pain, for example, it's hard not to suffer. Like there's absolute suffering. Like it's, even if you don't engage with it mentally, there's physical pain. You could make it worse mentally. So, or even, yeah, or even something like some barrier to, you know, because we also take our thoughts and our mind with us, and there, when we hit a barrier to something that we were expecting, or something, you know, we're walking along and all of a sudden we hit a wall, you know, and there's a pushback. That's always hard. And you know, even though you could argue that we're connected to that that our ego is sort of connected or invested in this thing, we can't help it. You can't navigate in the world without that. So how do we marry the two? How not, we can't function without an ego, and yet we get punished for doing that.
But we can function without an ego.
But then, okay, and then back to the emotions. Yeah, and you talked about the emotions. If we identify with the emotion, because the emotion is going to happen, and is that the ego?
The things arise. The ego is just saying, it's me doing this. I'm the center of your experience, and this is I'm in control, and that's all ego. So that can fall away. The ego can completely fall away. The ego serves no useful purpose.
Can you have emotions without identifying with an ego?
Sure, you still have emotions arising. They're just not the emotions of an ego any longer. You still have difficulties arising. You still have pain in the body arising. It's just not. It's not the ego's pain or the ego's difficulty or the ego's emotion. It's just nature. It's nature arising. It's nature unfolding. So you can't figure this out, right?
Okay, that helps.
You can't figure this out with your mind.
No.
That's why, it boils down to practice. And it really does. It boils down to spending some time directing your attention in particular ways where you cultivate dwelling in awareness, and it kind of opens up as insights. In fact, you have to let go of trying to figure it out with the mind. And that's kind of the first step, is seeing that and it's just the ego trying to remain in control. Trying to figure it out is just the ego trying to remain in control. So first you see that, then you see, okay, this is just the ego wanting to be in control. The practice is just to direct my attention in particular ways, doing this practice, whether it be a guided meditation, a body scan. They're all just strategies. Meditations are just strategies to help you see the ultimate truth of your being. They're not the end, be all and end all. They're just really strategies. They're kind of like exercises to help you see. But you can't really see without them. You can't see by reading books. You can't see by drawing flow charts, spreadsheets, figuring it out conceptually. It's just not possible. In fact, it's just the ego solidifying itself. It's solidifying itself as the center. It's the number one strategy the ego uses to remain at the center of consciousness. Is I'll try and figure this out. Yeah, and I'll just keep spinning around trying to figure it out. That's why I keep directing you towards practice. Like, meditate, just meditate a little bit, and then more likely you might direct your attention in that way during the day as well. Because the more you practice meditation, that kind of controlled environment, the more you start to do that, it leaks into your everyday.
Yeah.
It really does. And you're not, when you meditate, don't try to do anything. Like, don't just follow a guided meditation or just be with what is. But, if you get caught up and you have to feel a certain way, or you should have a certain result, then you just get frustrated. The ego gets frustrated. It's, I don't want to do this anymore because it's not, I'm not getting the results that I expect, or it's too hard, or I don't have time, or, there's lots of things the ego can come up with. And in fact, as you start to see more and more of the truth of what is, the ego actually gets more and more resistant to meditation. Because it wants to remain at the center. The last thing it wants is you to see its true nature. So it starts to say, you really shouldn't do this, man. It's not, come up with 101 reasons. Again, just thoughts arising. 101 reasons are just why you shouldn't meditate, or just thoughts arising. And ultimately, what's most important, if it's based on seeing the truth, then meditation is what's most important.
Okay, that's good. Kind of helps me get with some perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's quite abstract, and it's hard to really articulate kind of how it all comes together, but the concept of non-self.
It's actually so simple. It's so simple. It's so simple. It's the mind that makes it complex and abstract, and it's so, when you see it, it's like you kind of go, my God, that's so simple. It's just so simple. It's unbelievably simple. It's the simplest thing there is.
That the simplest thing is that there is no self.
It's the true nature. Ultimate reality is the simplest thing there is. It's just nature unfolding. It doesn't get any simpler. It's just nature unfolding. It doesn't get any simpler, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's nature's complex, but you don't understand. I mean, science is understanding nature, and that's great. Scientists are, it's important to do that science, but we don't have to understand how it all works. But in its basic essence, it's just nature unfolding, laws of nature. There's natural laws that are unfolding, and causing conditions coming to play. So simple, right? When you hear it, it's just so simple.
The concept is simple. The practice is not easy, because the ego is constantly, because of our conditioning and because of the nature of the ego. So it's simple but not easy as I see it. And that's and I think the practice is to see. It sounds like to be mindful, to be aware, and to observe.
Yeah, you hit it right on. It's simple, but it's not easy. And the practice is to see. And the process is to be aware. You summed up everything.
Okay, well, that's kind of
just what you just said.
appears to me.
What you should hear what you just said. It's most profound statement of the evening.
Oh, dear. Well, it was kind of from what you said, just kind of came together. So yeah, so it's, yeah, the answer is meditate, practice.
Simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's all about seeing. And the process is awareness. That's what you said. That's just beautiful.
Yeah. So that's how it appears to me. And I feel encouraged by that. I feel like that's accessible.
Yeah.
As you said, that simplifies it.
Yeah. The process is awareness. I'll start with the process is awareness to seeing.
Yeah.
To seeing, and what you see is really quite simple. It's very elemental, basic. It's not complex.
Yeah.
Not abstract, very concrete, unadorned. The Buddha used the word, it's unadorned. Reality is unadorned. It just is.
It's simple.
Yeah.
And it's experiential. So we have to go along a path experiencing that to truly see and integrate that into, for lack of a better word, would be habit of mind.
Yeah.
So it does seem simple, actually, now that you say.
That's good. I might quote you on that in the next session if I can remember it.
Okay, if I can remember it, but yeah. But thank you very much, Stephen. You have a good holiday.
I will. Thank you. Bye.